Well, good Monday morning to you, and welcome to our Monday morning edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. I'm Jim Tabor, along with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition over in Gulfport on Cowan Road. Now, we will tell you now that this show was pre-recorded at an earlier date, so we had people given the opportunity to email us some questions about today's subject, which a lot of people suffer from. Well, a lot of people deal with. They may not suffer from it, but some do, and some don't. Very common. I didn't find out that I had it until I was in my 40s, and that's high blood pressure.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, and it can cause, a lot of problems for you and even death.
It can. Yeah. Oh, yeah, blood pressure, and they call it the silent killer because a lot of people have no symptoms leading up to it. I always tell the people that come in that are having symptoms, like headaches. That's probably the most common symptom we see with high blood pressure. Somebody saying, I have a dull headache. I tell them they're the lucky ones because it's telling them something's wrong. Some people sky high blood pressure and there's no symptoms whatsoever. Now the good thing about blood pressure is it's so easy to check. I mean, that is the simplest thing to see if you have. I mean, you take a blood pressure. I mean, so that's really easy.
And nowadays you go in, even to big box stores and you
grocery stores,
grocery stores. Everybody's got a machine, and and there of course a lot of people say, well, are they that accurate? Well, here's the deal: be consistent and use the same one. So, like if you go in the grocery store, every time you go in a grocery store, check it.
And then we also tell people if you go in one of these stores, because we're not sure when they were calibrated last.
Right.
If it shows a problem, go get it checked somewhere else. Actually do go to the doctor's office and have it checked. Come by our office and have it checked. Because we do have the mercury. Of course, the mercury ones are the most accurate. And we do have those machines. And I tell people, if you see a weird reading on one machine, get it done at a machine you know is accurate and see.
And one thing that you want to do too is because whenever I go in there and they check my blood pressure, sit still before you actually check it. Sit still for a couple of minutes. Just sit still, relax.
Right. Same thing if you do go to somewhere else to have it done. Don't just go run, sit down, check it, because it's going to be up a little bit just from moving around so
activity.
much. Yeah,
and don't be sitting there talking to the doctor or whomever or your friend about it either whenever you're getting it checked.
I always say no talking, no crossed legs. I mean,
no chewing gum.
I mean, you do want to certain things, just have it accurate. And if you're at home and you have a home one and it keeps showing a problem, make sure your machine is accurate. But if your machine is accurate, it's a good way to monitor it because then you can tell what it is.
Yeah, and it's something that when you're doing this thing, a lot of people, when they go to the doc, for their visit and so on, it'll always show a little high, but they have a home machine like Janine was talking about, and they say, well, gee, it's always good at home. You can have something called white coat syndrome.
Which truly, your blood pressure goes up when somebody else goes to take it.
The nurse comes in to check it, and I always, my cardiologist always kind of tell her, I said, you got that mean nurse, she's checking my blood pressure, And of course, she's not mean, don't get me wrong. But, it'll always be maybe 5 or so points higher there than it is when we check
even though yours is always really good.
Mine's and it's still okay when she checks it, but it's higher.
But it's higher than normal.
Yeah,
and it's pretty common. And I always say, if you're not sure, take your cuff into your doctor's office and get them to check yours and theirs at the same time.
That's a really good idea. We have a lot of people bring theirs into because we have the big machines like they use in the hospital, so they're pretty accurate. And they'll bring their home machine in, and we can calibrate or check it against ours,
and then when you check, because probably checking it yourself is one of the more accurate ways, just because you're more relaxed.
Exactly.
Being anxious and being upset about getting it taken. I had one young guy. I mean, this guy was like 21 years old, and he said, "I can't have my blood pressure checked." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I mean, it's crazy." And he said, "My pulse starts raising so fast." And I'm not kidding. This kid's, it was so. I mean, it would go to like 150. Like that. I could feel his
pulse?
Yes. Yeah. His pulse was normal, but you'd go put a cuff on his arm and it'd go to 100. It was crazy. But that's how bad. He said, I've never been able to get it checked because it freaks me out. And for some people, it's like that.
And my pulse has always been really good. It's always been like in the upper 50s, low 60s.
Yeah, your pulse doesn't always show what your blood pressure is going to do.
Exactly, because like I said, I was in my 40s, and up until that point, I was 43, 44 years old, and I had textbook blood pressure, 120/80, which is good. And then one day I went to the doctor for my for a checkup, yearly checkup. All of a sudden it was like 150/90. It's like, what the heck? So we checked it. Got a kit thing, and then checked it for the course of a week, and sure enough, You know, and
Now, as you age, there's no doubt. Now, some people start with high blood pressure even younger, but as you age, there's no doubt that you increase the chances of having high blood pressure. Now, we have the question constantly, what is normal? So let you know what's normal. Now, technically, it is hypertension if it's above 150 on the top and above 90 on the bottom. Now, pre-hypertension, which is it's
Borderline, so to speak.
it's getting too high, is when it's over 140 on the top and over 80 on the bottom. Now, when people age, when you start getting into the age group of the 80s and 90s, a lot of the new research shows it's better to be a little bit on the high side than on the low side. So they're actually finding that people are getting better pressure and more oxygen to the brain if the pressure is a hair higher. So age does make a difference on where is normal. So I always say really it differs. And if you're really young, it probably really shouldn't even be 140 over 80. So I mean, it really depends on age. So I mean, it's individual. So you do need to have, but it's so easy to have checked.
It is, you know, and like I say, you know, if you go to one of the big box stores, go to the grocery store, or you know, whatever, wherever they have one of those machines, every time you're in there, just check it. You know, but like you said, go in, sit down, kind of take a deep breath or two, you know, just kind of relax a little bit, yeah, and then check it and see what it is. And if it's consistently the same thing, yeah, okay, we're doing pretty good.
Right. And then there's always the question of what's the dangers of having high blood pressure, because some people don't know. Enlargement of the heart is a big one. Of course, it increases cardiovascular risk. It definitely increases the chance of stroke. It definitely affects the kidneys. That's one a lot of people don't know. High blood pressure over long periods of time makes kidney dysfunction, and then kidney dysfunction makes higher blood pressure. So it's, you know, a lot of people on dialysis might be on dialysis because they had high blood pressure that was not controlled for years. So there is a lot of things that can happen. I mean, you can affect the vessels in your eyes, you can affect the sight, there's so many things affected by high blood pressure. So it is something that you can do something about, and it is something that is so easy checked. I mean, you don't even have to have a blood test. You don't have to do anything. You just get it checked.
And that's, you know, and as you said, if you don't get it under control, it can be very detrimental to your health.
Yes,
certainly can.
Definitely. And
Certainly
you know,
can.
you're seeing more and more high blood pressure because you're seeing more and more. There's no doubt obesity plays a role in blood pressure. Not always. You can have little skinny 90-pound women and they can have high blood pressure because we've seen it. So you can have the little skinniest people there are and they can still have high blood pressure. So it's not the only thing as being overweight, but there's no doubt being overweight puts you at higher risk.
All right. Okay, well, this program was pre-recorded at an earlier date, but we're talking about something very important and could be very serious and that you need to be aware of. That's high blood pressure. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back. It's our Monday morning edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live Healthy, Be Healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox. This particular program was taped at an earlier date so we could take off next week. Or this week, shall we say. We taped it last week. Getting confused here. What are some of the things that you find in lab work that can be a red flag for somebody for high blood pressure?
Well, you know, a lot of folks that have, you know, we do the routine lab work and we see things that can lead up to it. And there's been a lot of research on how it affects it, and that's vitamin D. That's a biggie. As a matter of fact, they did some really good research at the University of Massachusetts on how they would actually give people that would be their first line of treatment, would be they find that they're low, would have hypertension, even borderline hypertension. And the first thing they would do would be modulate that D level back up into a normal range, and quite a big percentage of them actually corrected the hypertension issue.
Right, and also some big things, minerals make a huge difference in blood pressure, especially magnesium. And almost anybody with low magnesium is going to start having problems with blood pressure. So that's another level that you can check and that we do check. And another one is potassium. People with low potassium, definitely, people come in and say, I can't control my blood pressure, I'm taking my medications, for some reason it's still going up, and when you do your lab work, they're low in potassium. Potassium plays a huge role in blood pressure control, and so does magnesium.
And along with that, cortisol.
Cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Well, the stress hormone actually lowers the potassium. And so the stress hormone also causes a lot of other actions
if you get stressed,
in the body.
your blood pressure is going up.
Tends to go up.
Right, because you get vasoconstriction. When you get tense and uptight and stressed, your vessels get tighter. And when they're tighter, I always say it's physics. You have a smaller hole to push blood through, so you have to have more pressure. So if you know physics, anytime that there's not as much room, you have to have more pressure. And that's kind of what happens in stress. But like I said, and it also lowers the potassium, which affects it. So we do check all that on our lab work, the stress hormone. And then another factor that a lot of people don't even ever think about is thyroid. Now, it's known that an overactive thyroid makes high blood pressure, no doubt. That's probably one of the biggest factors when you see somebody with an overactive thyroid is extreme high blood pressure. But low thyroid can also cause high blood pressure. So it just needs, the thyroid needs to be just right. So all the factors that we check can contribute, whether it be thyroid, cortisol, magnesium, potassium, and of course that kidney function that we've already mentioned. Bad kidneys almost always make high blood pressure.
Yeah, because the kidney actually is the main control for blood pressure. A lot of people don't realize that, but your kidney actually makes the angiotensin, and that's part of the, a lot of people, for instance, take an ACE inhibitor, the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, because that ACE is higher, and that's going to cause more vasoconstriction and increase the blood pressure. Kidneys are the master control because they have to have a certain amount of blood pressure to function. And if for whatever reason they don't seem to be getting what they want, then the kidney can say, okay, I'm going to raise this blood pressure, and it will.
Well, another factor that we have to mention, because it's one of the big factors, insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, which we talk about almost every condition you have can be associated. When you look at the list on do you have metabolic syndrome, one of the questions is high blood pressure. Because people with high blood pressure tend to have metabolic syndrome. Not always, but it's also linked.
Always, right.
So that's a sugar handling problem.
Well, we got an email. Question was, can high blood pressure contribute to erectile dysfunction?
Sure.
ED.
Yeah, it can. I mean, the problem with with that vasoconstriction is.
Yeah, I was going to say what she was talking.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to pronounce that word again.
Okay.
Yeah.
That big word. Right?
Yes. That
when the blood vessel to the penile artery, that little artery, it's very small. I mean, it's a tiny little artery. It's not huge, big artery like you'd have in an arm or something. And it's when you start vasoconstricting all of the blood vessels, and that one goes down, you're not going to get the blood flow that you need for that normal erection. So yeah, it can cause that. So they'll start experiencing all kinds of.
And another thing that we see a lot of is the blood pressure medications affect ED. So a lot of people with blood pressure too, it's the medications they're on for it. Now sometimes it could be a depletion that the blood pressure medications are making, and a lot of blood pressure medications deplete nutrients. And we're not saying stop your blood pressure medication.
No, not at all.
We want to make sure we tell people that. Do not ever just stop your blood pressure medicine. But you want to replenish the nutrients that's depleted by that medication. And one of the big ones is CoQ10. And the bad thing about CoQ10, one of the side effects of not having enough CoQ10 is high blood pressure. So you'll have people come in that's been on blood pressure medication for years, and it was controlled. And all of a sudden they're saying it isn't controlled anymore. But if you put them on, sometimes you put those people on CoQ10, then their medication controls it again.
Because a lot of the medication, for instance, the beta blockers, and it's a pretty common blood pressure medication. It really is. They're very good ones. I mean, they work really well in most cases. But like she said, you might put a patient on a beta blocker 10, 15 years ago, and it worked great for 10 or 15 years. And all of a sudden, hey, they're getting a little older, and their liver and everything is just not capable of putting out quite enough CoQ10 to overcome what's being depleted through the medication and what their body needs. And so, yeah, you can have a depletion problem there. So, anytime you're taking a medication, one of the things that Janine and I always focus on is, if you're taking certain we want to see what kind of medications you are taking, but what medications you're taking can dictate what nutrients you're probably being depleted in. And just fixing that issue, a lot of times will fix the blood pressure stuff.
Can high blood pressure cause you to gain weight?
Not in itself. I would say not in itself. Just having the pressure high usually doesn't make weight gain. Now, weight gain does make high blood pressure, and the stress hormone makes weight gain and high blood pressure. So, I mean, there's things that can make both.
So you have a bigger chance of having high blood pressure if you're overweight.
Yeah, a bigger chance.
Bigger chance. And
right.
insulin resistance makes a huge difference, which is not a sugar handling problem. And, that sugar handling problems definitely make weight gain. So there's conditions that make the high blood pressure and the weight gain, but I wouldn't say the high blood pressure itself makes weight gain.
Cause weight.
Yeah, it's an association, but it's not the causation.
Yeah.
In other words, it's associated together, but not necessarily what causes it, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a kind of a touchy little subject there.
Well, I know we've talked about the importance of CoQ10 in the past.
Yes.
Because of and I'm even on it.
Yes.
Because of the fact that I do take high blood pressure. I do take blood pressure medication for that. So and that's one thing that
that you
I know it's
definitely want to
important.
replenish.
Can blurred vision, you know how you get those little floaters things?
Well, it's not the floaters, but the vision can change.
Vision can
due
change
to-
with
and,
high
and
blood
headaches,
pressure, yes.
that'd be,
Well,
Yeah,
headache,
like we
you know,
talked about at the
headaches
beginning of the show.
earlier,
And
I always
headaches
say
too.
they're the lucky ones because it tells them something's wrong.
And
Right.
but you know, here's
Yeah.
here's the thing about blurred vision or any visual changes. Blood pressure can do that. So can blood sugar levels.
Yes.
So you know you can have the fluctuations in either one can cause that visual disturbance, and that's something that you really anytime you experience that. You really want to check it out. You
Right.
know, it's sort of like that little red light on your dash that comes on that says check engine or something.
Yeah.
You know, you want to really check it, okay? It's really
And
simple.
high blood pressure usually makes what people a dull headache is what everybody
Yeah.
will say is I have a really dull headache.
Yeah, it's not like in one place
Yeah.
or something like that. You
Just
know,
kind
it's
of
just
all
like
over.
the whole head.
Yeah.
is, yeah.
All right. Well, we're going again. This program was pre-recorded at an earlier date, and we'll let you know that the doctors are not in this entire week.
Right.
So if you go by to see them, but anyway, we'll be back. We do have a weekly special. We'll have that for you in just a moment. And welcome back to our Monday morning edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition, located on Cowan Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. I mentioned that Jim and Janine will not be there this week. They're taking a well-deserved vacation.
Like the first vacation we've had in 20 years.
Wow. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Dr. Bull will be in
Yes,
there.
he will be in all week.
There will be a
all
doctor
week
there
long.
Yes.
all week.
Now
yeah.
Tuesday we're actually closed. The store is closed for
Mardi
Mardi
Gras.
Gras, right?
Mardi Gras.
So
And
Mardi
so
Gras.
Tuesday no one will be there, but of course Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday Dr. Bull will be there.
Okay. And there are certain days that y'all are open a little bit earlier. Usually you open 10 to 5:30, but
Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday.
Well, we're
opens at 8.
open. The doctors are still not available for consultation until 10 o'clock.
Right, but
any
what I'm
morning.
talking about for taking,
But if we
for
do
taking,
need,
blood-
yeah,
blood
once
work.
we've already
Mm-hmm.
decided what people need blood work done, they are there for blood draws. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the store's open at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, and the store's open if you need a refill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is high blood pressure, is that associated with diabetes?
Oh, yeah. But, you know, one of the...
Well, most diabetics have high blood pressure, but high blood pressure doesn't necessarily give you diabetes.
No,
Right.
Okay.
it's the
The other
end
way around,
result
yeah.
of the diabetes because one of the things that happens with diabetes is a stiffening or hardening of the arteries due
Right.
to
Sure, yeah.
glycation, which is exposure to sugar, and you know that's just the end result of too much glycation, and
And
so
just
you know you
as
won't start
people
seeing that.
age, those arteries stiffen also. And so stiffening of the arteries, you know, and you always have heard hardening of the arteries. I mean, that's
Right,
kind of,
right.
you've probably always heard that term.
It's a common term.
Really does help happen with age if you don't know the right thing. Now, we could talk about our specials, and one of our products that we do use called Vascular Support BP, one of the things that it does help with is to keep from stiffening the arteries. So it does help the elasticity of the arteries.
It has a very specific type of a grape seed extract, and it's actually a patented one. But that particular type of grapeseed extract has been shown in the research to actually make the vessels, the blood vessels, arteries, and so on, more elastic, letting
Yeah.
them stretch.
And it also has your cocoa extract, which they've said that chocolate helps blood
extract.
pressure. Well, it
Excellent.
has the extract from it that it actually helps. It's also going to have something called Arjuna, which is like a heart tonic, and it
Yeah.
has hawthorn and magnesium. And so, I mean, it's a combination of things that we've put together, and it works really well.
It's got magnesium too.
right.
Did you mention magnesium?
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay, good.
Now,
Magnesium's
and
really
if
big in
somebody,
it.
like we have a lot of people that come in that's already on blood pressure medicine, and they say,
Right.
you know, instead of going back and getting a second blood pressure medicine, can I add something? That can be added to most medications, except
Mm-hmm.
for like digitalis. People on digitalis can't add hawthorn. So,
But
I mean, there's
that's-
certain things. That's why you
It's
always
not
want to
used-
talk to us.
Yeah,
and
digitalis
see-
isn't used that much anymore,
it's not.
so and that's a good thing probably. But yeah, but yeah, and
then
that
the
AminoFlow. Now
those-
that's a great one because what it does is it's got your nitric oxide. What it does increases nitric oxide, which just opens those blood vessels up
Right.
and allows the blood
We
to
keep
flow.
talking about the vasoconstriction, and we put our product AminoFlow together for vasodilation. And it is used definitely for blood pressure, but it's also used for erectile dysfunction. So we use it for both.
Oh, okay.
I've had a lot of people come in taking it for one, say, you know what else? It helps. I said, yes, I do. You know, so people notice even if that's not what they're taking it for.
That's one of the side effects.
Yeah.
A good side effect, by the way.
What is the difference between sodium and salt, and is
Yes.
there a limit of sodium to intake?
Yes.
You know, sodium. When you look at salt, table salt, for instance, okay, it's sodium chloride. So okay,
Yeah.
there's where your sodium's coming from.
So sodium is salt.
So yeah, and now there's all kinds of salts. There's magnesium
Right.
salts and so on and so forth.
Right.
Any mineral can be a salt, but typically
table salt.
Your table salt is sodium chloride. So there's where your sodium comes from. Is there an intake or a limit to sodium? Yeah, and it's going to vary from person to person, really.
It really does vary. And sodium's kind of one of those things over the years that I think has kind of gotten a bad rap. Now, there's no doubt there's some people will do lab work, their sodium's high. I said you definitely need to restrict your sodium because it does affect blood pressure.
But some of the research has actually shown that when it gets too
low, that it makes blood pressure go up too.
Really?
The body tries to compensate. And so we see a lot of these older people, and that has been told for so many years, don't eat salt. And they come in and they're passing out because their sodium is so low.
Yeah.
And they start having some you have to have some sodium. So that's why you want to get your blood work checked, like we say all the time.
Well, I remember, I don't know if they still do it, but years ago, if you worked outside a lot and you sweated a lot and everything, you took salt pills.
They still have them. We don't do them as often because most people eat so much processed food, they usually get enough sodium, to be honest with you. It's the people that don't eat the processed food that tends to start getting low sodium. And you don't want the processed food, and sometimes you have to add a little salt. But that's why, like I said, you do your lab work, because we find a lot of people flagged low.
Okay.
And then we find a lot of people flagged high. So
let's kind of talk about the different salts real quick. I use sea salt.
Right.
Okay.
And I know y'all have the pink Himalayan,
We have the Himalayan
salt,
which is
that
still
y'all
like
use a lot.
the Himalayan salt is going to be a little lower in sodium, but it still has sodium.
Yeah.
But it's going to have your other minerals with it.
Same thing with your sea salt. It's going to have just a shade lower sodium, and it's more about having some of those other minerals with it, the potassium and the zinc and so on, stuff like that, trace minerals.
Now, one thing you don't get as much of is the iodine, because they've iodized salt because Americans were getting so low in iodine.
Right.
And so when you do the Himalayan salt and you do the sea salt, it does not have the added iodine, so some people do need to add iodine.
Yeah. What is the number-one life change that can lower your blood pressure?
Stop eating sugar.
Yep.
Sugar.
Yes, sugar. When people come in,
You ask.
and they're pre-diabetic and diabetic, and we change their diet, I've had people on 5 blood pressure medications, and their doctor had to cut them down to 2. I mean, it makes a huge difference because and they weren't even losing the weight yet. It was just the diet change. So getting off of packaged processed food, cutting out the sugar, cutting out the grains, like we talk about every week, and that in turn will make weight loss.
Yeah.
Which does help. And then, like I said, exercise does help blood pressure as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But if somebody is in extreme high blood pressure, then it's sometimes going to be dangerous to exercise too much at first until you get it down.
When we mentioned sugar, okay,
Yeah.
and just in the last segment I mentioned something called glycation. And actually when you look at your hemoglobin A1C, what you're looking at is glycated hemoglobin A1C, the protein there. But most people don't realize what glycation is. Here's something for you to ponder. Think about when you've watched, I'm sure, whether you did it or somebody else that you saw, baked a cake, and they had the batter, and it's a nice, light, yellowish, creamy colored, when they put it in the oven. Now, they put it in the oven to bake a cake, and what happens is it comes out nice golden brown. That's glycation.
Right, and you have to have sugar in the cake in order to make glycation.
Now, you can either glycate at 98.6 or 350 degrees. 350 is going to be a little bit faster, but it's going to be a lot more worse on your health.
And then glycation does damage the cells in the body,
Right.
which is why diabetes is so hard on the body as a whole.
So it's better to put that cake in there and let it bake for about 5 hours before you...
Well,
Not necessarily, no.
It's better to cut out the sugar in our
Yeah,
body.
Cut it out totally,
Cut
okay.
it
Cut
out
the sugar,
have it,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know.
And you always try to find a way.
I know, I do. Anyway, thank you for joining us again this morning. This program was pre-recorded at an earlier date. Next week will be the first Monday of the month of March already.
Of
Yeah, I
March.
know.
Yeah, so it's going to be
Christmas
open
right around
Monday.
the corner.
Don't you know it?
I'm serious.
Anyway, hope you all enjoy your vacation this
We're
week.
going to.
Thanks.
All right,
We will.
and we will see you next week. Take care.